Thank you. I will say what I say at the beginning of every session I ever do. Thank you for coming. I'm always afraid I'm going to offer one of these and no one shows up. It never happened to me, but it did happen at a conference I attended a few years ago. Thank you all for attending today. If I talk too fast, tell me. I will slow down because I have an hour and a half worth of stuff to cover, and I want to make sure I get through it all. Along with the PowerPoint, I'm going to include the other handouts that I have from this webinar. So let me share. Give me a minute. Share sound. And what am I sharing? I'm sharing this. Okay. Do you see anything?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can see
You
your
see it?
screen.
Okay.
Yep.
I have two screens and I had it on the wrong screen. So I will tell you that this webinar is one of the products of my doctoral dissertation. I studied
Sorry, Cal.
listening.
Now we see the ocean. We don't see the slide.
Ocean.
You might have
Oh, you see
shifted.
the ocean. Hold on. Let me stop sharing. Let me share again. I moved it. One more time. You see the slide?
Yeah, but it's a boat on an ocean or something. It's not your PowerPoint.
It's your second window, Carol.
Yeah.
No, I moved it to my first window. All right.
Diane's riding shotgun for you.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, one more time. This one. This one. Okay, I think I've got them all clicked. Share.
Yes.
There we go.
Yay, I got
Good.
it. Okay, so here we go. So I should move my camera then. Nope. Okay. So we'll look at a little background for adult education, and then we'll go and some best practices, and then we will go right into the good stuff. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to introduce yourself. Tell me a little about yourself. Who are you? What organization do you work for? What is your role? What's your job? And what are you hoping to get from today's workshop? Now I can see what you're posting. Okay, that's your background. And let's see. So, adult English language learners, this is an audience of learners that is different from K-12. And I know 16-year-olds can be in high school, but they can also be attending our ESL classes, our high school equivalency prep classes. We have people who come to us from a variety of countries, a variety of backgrounds, different languages, different goals, personal and professional. They come here they believe in that American dream, which is wonderful. I'm happy to see that people still believe in that, because I think sometimes we lose sight of it. It's still possible to do anything in this country. Okay, so best practices. There's a difference between teaching language skills to someone born in the United States and someone who comes from English as a second language background or subsequent language, English language learner background. But the skills, some of the activities you would do work across the board. I mean, having a person be exposing your students to a word in different contexts across meanings is a good thing to do because it gives them a full knowledge and understanding of a word. You know, you can introduce words and then as the students are more comfortable with the language, give them a synonym. Do antonyms, give words that have similar meanings, expand on their vocabulary knowledge, expand on their knowledge. Okay. Of course, we always start with high frequency words because those are the words they most need to function in a new country, to survive in a new country. So in our program, we allow students for the first 2 weeks to use bilingual dictionaries, to use translation devices. After the first 2 weeks, we take them away. We tell them not to use them because now you should be comfortable in your surroundings. You should be comfortable in the classroom that you're in with the people you're with. We want you to focus more on learning English and less on trying to translate, because that translator can become a crutch. And if you're so busy reading that translator, you're really not paying attention to the teacher, your classmates, and what's happening around you. Our students or language learners will be exposed to the listening and speaking. So the oral and oral language skills before they read and write. Think of yourself. I mean, I remember high school Spanish. We started with, hola, ¿qué tal? Bien, y tú, me amo. So you're learning to use the language. Then you get the written part. Then you get the reading and the writing parts. So remember that when you're working with your students. So quick vocabulary review. Oral vocabulary, there is a difference, is words for listening and speaking. Written vocabulary is any language that is reading and writing. And then oral vocabulary activities, if you notice, these really don't have a lot of reading activities. These are all activities based in person to person, maybe some pictures, but a way for students to take in information and then respond in some way. The response could be pointing to a picture. The response could be, I had coffee and toast for breakfast. Okay. So listening. When you're teaching, think of yourself as a learner. Think of yourself as a language learner. What works best for you will probably work well for a lot of your students. So don't be afraid to try different things. And one thing I meant to add to the last slide is serendipity. And Eric and I were talking about this earlier. Serendipity is what happens when a student walks in and says, I just got a parking ticket. What do I do? That's a great learning experience for your students. Now you can talk about what tickets are, how you get them, the cultural meaning of tickets, because in some countries, you get a ticket and who cares? Everybody has them. We post them on our walls instead of wallpaper. But here, if you get enough tickets or you don't pay it for a long enough period of time, you're going to have a problem. So serendipity or off the cuff is a good way for students to learn. It's a great way to teach culture too. Our principal went into the classrooms yesterday to talk to students. And his idiom was stay in your own lane. That's a perfect lesson. That's a perfect culture lesson. Off the cuff, unexpected. And it would only take about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to do a lesson on stay in your own lane and what it means. Okay. So listening, that's our first topic. Let me get to the next skill. Okay. Listening is, so I will tell you, I don't read slides. I know you can read. So you read the slides and I'll give the narration. Listening is a very important skill. We had a fire drill a couple of weeks ago, and some of our ESL students were on break. They were sitting in the student lounge, And one of the teachers, not one of the ESL teachers, tried to get them to move. You know, you can't sit in the student lounge. It's a fire drill. You have to leave the building. And finally, I went in and said, out, everybody out. And I coaxed them out the door and told them what to do. If they don't understand, you know, this is a fire drill, leave the building, that's a matter of health and safety. So you want to be sure that your students understand what's happening, right? Different ways we listen. So that's a perfect learning opportunity for them. You can practice doing fire drills. You can practice. We have, I think, 4 or 5 different drills, shelter in place, you know, bomb threats. These are the types of listening activities you want them to be aware of and comfortable with. Same thing with calling 911 for an emergency. They have to be able to not only give the information of where they are and what the emergency is, they need to understand what the operator is telling them so that they can give the correct address, the correct information. So, audience participation, first one. So, listening is an active process. Your students should be paying very close attention when they're listening to whatever you're presenting to them, right? If you know, so our first listening activity is on the weather. So you always want to activate prior knowledge. So what do your students know about weather? Well, we live in the Northeast, so they know a lot about weather. This past winter, they learned a lot about snow and freezing cold, not just cold, freezing cold. With weather comes maybe road conditions, maybe clothes that you're going to wear. You know, it's 2 degrees below zero. T-shirt really isn't enough. You need a winter coat. It's 95 degrees. Well, you don't need a winter coat. Now you want that T-shirt. So activate prior knowledge with them. Encourage them. So when I do listening activities, I always do that deep breath, inhale, exhale to relax. Because the first time you do this, your students will hate you and they will say terrible things about you. But once they're comfortable with the process, once they get the pattern that comes with a simple listening activity, they will stop hating you. They will start to say nicer things about you again, and they will become more comfortable with listening. Because the first time you do this listening activity, there are no notes, no notebooks, no talking to your classmate. What did he say? What does it mean? This is a simple listening activity where your students listen to what's being given to them, like a radio. So let's see if I can get it to play. The first listening activity has to do with the weather. So one of the good things about teaching is you have so many choices of how you want to present a lesson to your students. One of the, I won't say bad things, but one of the issues with teaching is there are so many ways to present a lesson. How do you decide what to do? I'm going to leave that to you. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'll tell you when I do this lesson, I ask. So we're going to hear about the weather. We're going to hear a weather forecast. What do you know about the weather? I'm not writing anything down, but I'm okay, storm, rain. Yes, it's cold today. I'll take all that information. But the listening comes with nothing written on the board. So let's try this activity. So here we go. Okay, I want you to listen closely to what you hear. So listen for words you know. Listen for words maybe you don't really know, you've heard, you haven't heard. I want to know what you hear. So listen carefully. And you'll hear this only once.
Southwest winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. Saturday night, partly cloudy. Lows in the mid-60s. Southwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Gusts up to 20 miles per hour in the evening. Sunday, mostly sunny. Highs in the upper 80s. West winds 5 to 10 miles per hour.
Okay, so here's the activity. So what did you hear? What are some of the words you heard? You can either unmute yourself or maybe in the chat. What are some of the words that you heard?
Southwest 10 to 15 miles per hour, sunny,
Okay,
windy, raining.
okay, yeah, that's our weather these days. Anything else? Did anyone hear anything else? Did you hear any temperatures? Did they give any temperatures? So, you want to remind your students the temperatures are Fahrenheit. My grandson drives me crazy because he'd rather have centigrade, but you have to remind them that Fahrenheit, 82 degrees Fahrenheit is a nice temperature. So here's the activity. You heard the weather forecast and they talked about the weather on Saturday. Look at these clothes. Tell me one item of clothing you think I should wear on Saturday. You can put it in the chat. Okay, gusty winds, those are horrible. So what should I wear? Shorts, a sweater, a t-shirt? Sure. Do I need an umbrella? Maybe not. Maybe not. Do I need a heavy winter coat? Goodness, no. That's great. And if your students are not sure, because this is a picture, there are no written words. So you're actually, a picture's worth 1,000 words. It is. They're looking at the picture. They know what most of these items of clothing are. If you're not sure they do, you can ask them, what's this? What's this? What's an umbrella? Why? When do you wear boots? So that adds to their knowledge base. And because they're getting a picture, they're getting a direct, not a translation. There's no translation. They're getting direct meaning. They know what it is without having to describe it. Okay. Questions? Okay, next is listening and speaking. And as I said, if I'm moving too fast, please let me know. I'm like that Micro Machines man. I talk fast. So speaking, skills and strategies for speaking. Speaking is give and take. You listen to someone and then you respond, or you ask a question, or you ask a question, or you're in the middle of a conversation. So there's a give and take that goes with speaking. Speaking can also be a presentation. So, I'm speaking, but it's not a conversation that we're having. One of the activities I like to use with my students is, there's always someone who's getting married, having a baby. There's always something going on in our students' lives, and everybody has one of these cell phones. So I invite them to share their pictures. Tell us, don't just tell me what you did. Show me what you did and talk about it. So this is a speaking activity for the student showing the pictures. It's a listening activity for the classmates. So now the question is, so what did Diane do this weekend? So invite your students to tell what they remember their classmates said. This gets them to actively listen and actively participate. Okay. Speaking is more than just the words. The prosody, the intonation, the stress, the rhythm of the language is very important. English is we're not really excitable unless we've won the lottery. Yeah, I won the lottery. You know, our language, our speaking tones are kind of monotone. We're only like 2 or 3 levels that we really use. Other languages like Chinese is a tonal language. The voice changes. So this is important for your students to know. When they come to a question mark, you know, are you home? Is not, are you home? So that's important for them because it's not just language, it's also culture, because culture is embedded in our language. Next one. Okay, speaking. Mostly give and take in conversation. It can also be one way, as I said. But speaking is a lot more involved than we really give credit. So conversations, you have to hear what the person is saying, make sense of it, translate it, comprehend, then formulate a response, maybe translate it, and then present it. So when I visit the family in Italy, they know Zia talks slowly because I'm hearing them in Italian and I'm translating and processing and trying to make sense of what they've said. And then comes the hard part. I have to formulate an answer in Italian and hope that I don't insult anyone. And, you know, they'll tell me when I do, and they understand my language skills are, I'm not that good, but it's a lot of work. So your students are working very hard, especially our entry-level students, our less proficient students, in understanding what they hear, making sense of it, and then formulating a response. So when you're asking students to respond to, remember wait time. Don't take the first person who responds all the time. Give your students time to process what they're hearing, form an answer, and respond. So wait time is important. Okay, another audience participation. And this one is, if I can get to it, we are going to listen to a conversation about meeting new neighbors. And I want you to listen to this conversation. Think about yourself. Now, you all came here from another country. What do you know about your neighbors? Think about how you met your neighbors. Think about any place you've lived and your neighbors. So I'm going to ask you to listen carefully, listen for words that you know and that you don't know. And we'll talk about this afterwards. So here we go.
Why, hello there. I'm Sophie. I live next door. Welcome to the building.
Hi, Sophie. Thanks. I'm Alex, and my brother and I just moved in yesterday.
Nice to meet you. How's the move going?
It's been busy, but we're slowly unpacking.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I moved everything in 2 weeks. You've got everything you need?
Almost. I'm trying to find the nearest grocery store and post office.
Oh, it's really easy. The nearest grocery store is just 2 blocks away,
Okay.
and the post office is right next to it.
That's great. Thanks.
No problem. And if you like great food, there's a good cafe across the street from the grocery store.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Well, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask.
Thanks, Sophie. I really appreciate it.
So I like Sophie's attitude. She's so cheery. So how do you want to present this lesson? Do you want to, you know what? I want to stop sharing this screen. I want to share a different screen with you. Let me find it. Sorry. So this is the website. This is what comes with the, you know what? Yeah, this is the activity. This is what comes with that listening activity on the web page. I saved it as a Word document just in case I couldn't get the technology to cooperate. I like a plan B. And here, there's a pre-listening exercise. There are some questions. They have the idioms. You see the idioms here. Oops. Then there are questions for students to answer multiple choice questions. There's vocabulary. There's a post-listening exercise. There's online investigation. There's a transcript. So if you wanted, you could turn this into a reading lesson. You could have students write responses to the questions. I want to go back to, hold on. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. I wish I could share more than one screen at once. Here we go. So here are the questions for this reading, or I'm sorry, for this listening activity. Here are the questions. So now remember, they can't take notes. They can't ask a classmate. They have to do this on their own. So now they really hate you. So when did Alex move into the building? Does anybody know when he moved into the building? You can put it in the chat. So I have all the answers, just so you know, they do give you the answers. So, okay, so he moved in yesterday. They moved in yesterday. And what does Alex need help finding? Is it A, B, C, or D? He needs help finding a grocery store and post office, right? C. How about question 3? How does Sophie offer to help? She's offering directions and guidance, right? Answer is B. And then number 4, what's across the street from the grocery store? So Sophie said it was a cafe, but a cafe is a type of restaurant. So the answer is A. For students who aren't sure, restaurant, cafe, here's a learning experience for them. If you wanted to give them the questions, you could, but now it's a reading activity. As soon as you give them printed materials, it changes the type of activity. Now it's a reading activity, okay? You're the teacher. You decide how you want it done. But I know we use TABE Class E as our intake and exit, or as our pre and post tests. And the listening activity is essentially listen very carefully. You will hear this only once. And their speed may not be as fast as Sophie's, but it's a quick speed. It's not a slow ESL teacher pace where you're talking a little slower so students hear you. It's more of a natural conversation pace. You want them to get used to that. You want them to pick up that ear for the language where they're able to discern sounds and understand what people are saying. Okay. You can also discuss this. You can invite your students to talk about their experience moving to the United States and meeting neighbors, and maybe meeting the neighbors back in their home countries when they, they got married, they moved, or they finished university, they moved. How did you meet people? What do you see that's the same between your country and here? What are some of the differences? Of course, you'll address the idioms, break the ice, lend a hand. There might be other idioms that you want to add to the conversation. Okay. Let's see, how am I doing on time? I'll talk faster. Okay, here we go. More audience participation. Okay, what's this one? Oh, here's another one. This one's good. This one is exercise. Our next listening and speaking. This is a listening and speaking activity on exercise. Everybody loves to exercise. So let your students think about what they know about exercising. And I'm sure you have students, I mean, just like our students, we have some students who are, they're gym rats. They like going to the gym, they like exercising. And then you have some who think, walking from the couch to the refrigerator is exercise. So have them think about what they know about exercising. How do you think you would present this lesson to your students? Are you going to change the way you present this lesson based on their level of proficiency, based on how long they've been in class with you? How do you decide? And I want you to think about this. How do you decide how you're going to present a lesson? Because I know there were days when I walked in saying, I think I'll do ABC. And then I start the lesson and wind up doing EFG. So think about that. So this is about exercising. So put on your listening ears and here we go.
Listenaminute.com. Exercise. Exercise is something most of us love to hate. A lot of us avoid it altogether. I do a lot of exercise, but not because I like it. I do it because it helps me stay slim and healthy. I always feel great after exercising, so there are good parts to it. The thing I hate most is getting ready. It's always difficult after a hard day's work to come home and then prepare for your exercises. I really don't want to do it when I'm getting changed. I hate the warm-up stretching. I also hate the first few minutes of a run, swim, or cycle. But then, once my lungs stop burning, I settle into a rhythm and things aren't so bad. Recently I bought an exercise bike. Sitting in my house cycling to loud music or watching TV is a great way to get some exercise.
Okay, so if you choose to tell your students you're going to listen to someone speaking and you don't tell them what it's about, then it's up to them to tell you afterwards. So here's the discussion. What is the story about? So I didn't tell them it's about exercise. They have to tell me, right? So this you might do after you've done these activities for a month, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less. Tell me what you heard. Tell me what you understood. Tell me what this is about. Yes, so this one about exercise is actually called Listen a Minute. Let me actually share this website with you. Back to share. This is what the website looks like. Can you see the website? Is it sharing it?
Yep.
It should say, well, I think it's a commercial, of course, in the middle. But this is called Listen a Minute. And they are literally 1 minute activities, 1 minute listening exercises, but they give you everything. So here is the transcript, right? There are activities, fill in the blanks, correct the spelling, unscramble the words, then discussion for students to write their own questions. Maybe you want them to make their own list of vocabulary words. Then a survey. So who exercises? When do you exercise? What kind of exercise do you do? And sharing with a partner, working with a partner or a small group. And then additional exercises. Okay, they give you the answers and then some additional exercises. And they are, let's see if I can navigate. Here we go, more. So look at all these choices, right? There are a lot of different choices. They're organized alphabetically. So if you want to talk about credit cards, And I know financial literacy is a big topic this year. You want to talk about credit cards. If you want to talk about banking is different in the United States than other countries. Here we go. Banks, savings accounts, checking accounts. This is a good resource. They're all 1 minute. And they give you all the activities you need. They give you the exercises. So they've kind of done the hard work for you. They've done some of the legwork for you. Okay, so let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. I love having two screens, don't get me wrong, but the camera's on one. And I don't want to, okay, are we back to the PowerPoint? Yes?
Michelle.
Yep.
Thumbs up. I'm good with the thumbs up. So these activities, the reason you want them to just listen, no pens, no pencils, no distractions, is because this helps them to focus on what they're hearing. And yes, these people are talking in a more natural, they're not slowing down their speech. And, he had a bit of a English Australian accent, but you're asking them to build the muscles in their ears, to listen, because most of their interactions are going to happen off the cuff in the real world when they're not able to write everything down. And I will be honest, when I need my cell phone the most is when it works the least. So you can't always rely on technology to be there for you. You have to be able to rely on yourself. And this is a big part of skill building. And this is a big part of scoring level 1 in the TABE or NRS level 1 in the TABE or CASAS or Best Plus, and scoring level 2 or 3 on their post-test. If their listening skills don't improve, their scores will not improve. And I am the first to admit, I am first and foremost a teacher, but I am also a program manager, and I know the value, I know the importance of our students making measurable skills gains. John, I know you heard me say that, so I know the DOL is listening. I would tell that to anyone. It's important for our students to learn for the sake of learning, but it's important for them to learn because that's why our classes are here. Those measurable skill gains mean a lot to us as grant-funded programs. Okay. And as your students become more proficient, as their listening skills improve, they can speak, communicate with a wider audience of people. They can meet more neighbors and talk to more people. And that's how you become acclimated to a new country. You build your skills and you expand the people. It's nice to be with your family, but gee, sometimes you don't want to be just with your family. You want a larger group of people to speak with, excuse me. Okay, listening activity, dictation. I know this is older than Hollywood Squares and older than Paul Lind probably, but it is also a very worthwhile activity. And yes, it involves writing, but it is first and foremost a listening activity. So there are rules for conducting a dictation activity, and they are the rule of 3. That baseball rule, 3 strikes you're out. Well, with a dictation, the first thing you do is your students listen, just listen. Then they write what they hear. The third time, they check what they've written to make sure that's what they want to write, to make sure that's what they've heard. So again, the great thing about education is you have so many choices. You can collect your students' work and read what they've written. You can write the sentences on the board and watch as they correct themselves. You can have them switch with a classmate and have them, have them grade each other's papers to show where the good, the bad, the ugly are. Dictation should be very simple. And you can use a dictation to target something you might be teaching. So if you're teaching a simple present progressive tense, you might use that as one of your sentences. She is listening to the radio now. Maybe your last activity was, so here, our dictation number 3, please buy bread and juice at the market. Maybe we're talking about food. Maybe we're talking about days of the week. Maybe we're learning questions. Whatever you're learning can be put into those dictation sentences. Notice that they're simple. Notice that you don't have to do 5. You can do 3. You can do 1. You can do 2. You can do 3. I would say do at least 2 or 3. When you correct the dictation, whether you read it or you watch your students score their own, you're getting a tremendous amount of information. Now you see their writing shows you what they heard, what they understood. Spelling doesn't count, but it is a heads up for you on, so if they spell bread, B-R-E-D, you need to do maybe a little more practice with the EA sound, the S sound spelled as EA. If they can't spell the word, if they spell night, N-I-T-E or N-I-G-T, maybe they need a little practice with that. But the results from your dictation are a wealth of information. So I'm not going to do the dictation with you, but it will teach you a lot about your students, how they're processing information and what they understand. Okay. Okay, a read aloud activity. Okay. So reading is important. With reading, you'll want to activate your background knowledge. You'll want to let them know. So I think the reading we're doing is called English Around the World. And, we speak English. We sound different from, Brits, and we sound different from people in Australia and New Zealand and, even other countries where English is a language that, they go to Canada, go to Quebec, they're speaking English and French. We all sound the same, but we all sound different. So being able to understand English, regardless of who's speaking it, is a skill. But reading is a little different. So now you have something visual in front of you. You're able to use that pencil or pen and take notes. You're able to write down your thoughts. You're even able to, if it helps, translate a word. So there are some words, you're talking about emotions. You can't always define an emotion. Sometimes the best definition is translating the word into your home language. I mean, I always remember learning simpatico in high school Spanish class, and I can't think of a real definition for it, but I understand it. Right? So, reading activities. So, introduce the topic. So, a reading activity is different. So now you are writing. So introduce the vocabulary, any words students need to know to understand the reading activity you're giving them. Be careful not to target, if you have to target more than like 5 or 10 words, maybe consider doing that reading later in the session when your students are more proficient. If you have too many vocabulary words, you don't want to lose the forest for the trees. You don't want them to not be comfortable because they don't understand, right? For me, reading is also a matter of three. So I think it's very important for your students to read silently, read a passage silently, because that's when they're making the word knowledge connection. That's when they're actually understanding what they're reading. I think it's also a good idea for you to read a passage aloud, because now they're getting the proper pronunciation, they're getting the intonation, they're getting the pitch, they're getting the fluctuations in your voice, they're getting the letter sound connections. They're hearing what it should sound like. And then the third can be, I don't know, you can have your students read aloud as a group. You can have them read aloud individually, one sentence at a time, or a short paragraph at a time. You can have them read in pairs. You can, your choice, teacher's choice. But I think it's always a good idea to have them read silently, because that's when they're understanding. When they read aloud, they're so focused on saying the words correctly, they're not paying attention to the meaning. That will come with skill and practice, and improving their, building on their English language. As they move through the NRS levels and their English improves, they'll be able to better understand while they're reading. It won't be as big a gap. And it's always a good idea to have a discussion, because there's so much that comes out of the discussion: language, more vocabulary, culture, and sometimes some really great stories. So this is the reading activity. A quick story. It's 3 short paragraphs. It's easy enough. I mean, here's this word exotic. This is, wow, this is a big word for some of our students. But it's a simple story, and it's something they can relate to for the most part. And here are the questions. So they're true false questions, and they came with the activity. Let me see. You know what? Let me share this one with you too. I know. It's over here. Here. Let me see, where is it? Oh dear, it doesn't want to share. Okay, it does not want to share. Let me try this again. Ah, here it is, found it. This is what it looks like. And I have the links for all these websites. This is what it looks like, a nice little picture. They give you the vocabulary. They give you the short reading. They give you the questions and the answers at the bottom. But this is a nice activity. It's good for reading practice. It's good for your students to, so now they make the connection between the words and the sounds, right? One thing about, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my notes. One thing about reading that is important is that you can either use these websites, or you can take from the newspaper. We're up north. I still get paper newspapers. I like the puzzles and the comics, but you can pull stories from the local newspaper. We get the Bergen Record. I mean, there's the Asbury Park Press. There's, I don't know, is the Jersey Journal still printing? The Star Ledger, are they still in business? Go online. One of my favorite things to do is to use Dear Abby. I love getting those questions and posing them to students and have them, how do you solve this problem? And then after we've solved the problem, let's see what Dear Abby has to say. These are great activities for your students because they're adults. They're not children. They have life experience. They're not stupid. They can't speak English. Well, I don't speak Russian. So if I was in Russia, I would look like an idiot because I don't know any of the language. But our whole purpose is to build their language and not make them feel lesser as people. So give them a Dear Abby question. I'm sure they have a lot of life experience and knowledge to share to solve these problems. And they may do a better job than Dear Abby. I don't know. But let them use the skills that they have. Don't make them feel less because they don't speak English. Some of I had a real rocket scientist in one of my classes, and like, wow, you're a rocket scientist and all I do is teach. So they have knowledge and skills. Let them use them. Okay, next, I think this is the last activity. And so with reading comes pronunciation, accent reduction, sound production. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Antonio Banderas would still be actors, but gee, having those accents does something. Antonio Banderas, nice. Pronunciation is not about losing your accent. It's about making yourself comprehensible to other people. It's about being able to speak so that other people understand you. It doesn't mean that you lose your accent. It means you're able to communicate with other people. Keep your accent. That's part of who you are. But be able to speak clearly enough that people understand you. And a lot of times, I'll be honest, it's really a matter of speaking a little more slowly. So when I started teaching, for me, it was always, okay, that Jersey City accent, lose it. It really just meant I needed to speak a little more slowly and pronounce sounds a little more clearly. So this is my teacher voice. And with our students, that's the same thing. Don't try to speak as fast, as quickly as we do. Slow it down a little so that you're pronouncing sounds more clearly, producing the sounds more clearly, and making yourself understood. So for those of you who want a more formal assessment of your students, there's something called the Fry readability. Where did I write it? Fry readability graph. You can use it. I think you do just as well on your own, listening to your students read a passage and determining what sounds they're having a problem with. There's a book. Okay, I do have an audience participation. Okay, this is a diagnostic passage that I have used with more with when I'm tutoring. But it's a reading passage, and it comes with this list of checks and squares and marks, and have your students read a sentence, read a short paragraph. When you do a read aloud, that will give you a tremendous amount of information on the sounds that they're still having difficulty producing, on the words that they may not be completely understanding. And I think this works better than any readability survey. I know Eric's going to have you might have something to say about that, but I think doing it just in the classroom is a better way to do it. For pronunciation, minimal pairs are great. I love minimal pairs. If you're not sure if you need some help with the pronunciation and sound production, there are two resources I recommend. One is by Nilsson and Nilsson. I think it's called Pronunciation Contrasts in English by Nilsson and Nilsson. It's a really old book. I don't know if it's still in production, but it's essentially a list of sounds in English, how to produce them, and and which countries would have issues with them. Let me find.
As Carol's doing that, I just let people know that I dropped the link in the chat for those of you that need the PD certificate. And Carol's going to give me the PowerPoint, and we'll have the recording of this, and I'll send out information to everybody after the conference is over.
Okay, here we go. This is what I want you to see. This is one of the things you'll get in the Nilsson and Nilsson book, Pronunciation Contrast in English. Another book that's really good is called ESL Miscellany. It's a wealth of information on everything. But this is one of the items you'll get in the book. It shows you where the sounds are coming from, right? And who would need help. So, TH sound is really popular in English, but not in most other languages. So we want our students to be able to make a sound, but it's going to be difficult for some of our students at first. And let's see, what's the last slide? The resources are the last slide, but you'll be getting this. Thank you, Q&A, resources, thank you. Okay, that's it.